You're nothing without this team, LeBron. Take off that Cleveland jersey and let's see who you really are. The words echoed through the gym like glass shattering against the floor. The heavy air carried the smell of sweat and burnt rubber. LeBron James, just 25, was at his peak, or so everyone thought. He had just carried Cleveland on his shoulders for years, playing as if the entire city depended on him. And it did. Cleveland was a city of shuttered factories, deferred dreams, and broken hearts. LeBron was the only light, but that night, in a live interview, after yet another playoff loss, commentator Skip Bayless, a man known for shattering idols with sharp words, looked directly into the camera and said, "LeBron James doesn't have the mentality of a champion. He's a stat hoarder, a selfish player masquerading as a hero. He'll never win a ring, never." LeBron heard it from the locker room. Sitting silently, with the towel over his head, he felt something break inside. It wasn't anger, it was doubt. For the first time in his life, he wondered if Skip was right, because LeBron James, the boy who grew up without a father, who slept on borrowed couches, who promised his mother he'd change everything, this LeBron didn't yet have a championship ring. And the whole world knew it. LeBron was born in Akron, Ohio, in a house that wasn't really a home. It was a temporary place. Everything in LeBron's life was temporary. His mother, Gloria, was 16 when he was born. She did what she could. Sometimes that meant moving 3 times in a year. Sometimes it meant not having anything to eat for dinner. But there was one thing that never changed: the basketball. When LeBron was 9 years old, a coach named Frankie Walker saw something in him. It wasn't just talent, it was hunger. It was as if LeBron played as if his life depended on it, because it did. Frankie took him home. He gave him a bed, a routine, and something LeBron had never had before: stability. And in return, LeBron gave basketball everything he had. He grew up fast, not just in height, but in responsibility. By 15, he was already making national headlines. The chosen one, they called him. LeBron James was the answer, the new hope, the next Michael Jordan. But no one asked LeBron if he wanted to carry the world on his shoulders. At 18, he went straight from high school to the NBA, first pick in the draft. Cleveland Cavaliers. The city erupted in joy. Finally something to believe in, and LeBron delivered. He played with the maturity impossible for his age. Impossible passes, dunks that hurt just to watch. But above all, he played with the heart of someone who knew what it was like to lose everything. He led Cleveland to the playoffs, year after year. He carried average players on his back like they were trophies. But real trophies, those weren't forthcoming. In 2007, he led the Cavaliers to the NBA Finals, all by himself. He was 22 years old and facing the San Antonio Spurs, a basketball machine led by Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. Cleveland was crushed. LeBron played his heart out, but it wasn't enough, and the world began to whisper, maybe he's not so good after all. The years passed. LeBron remained dominant, league MVP, best player in the world. But without a ring, these achievements felt hollow. People didn't want stats. They wanted the ring. They wanted to see LeBron on top of the world, holding the Larry O'Brien trophy. But in 2010, something changed. LeBron made a decision that would split the basketball world in half. He announced on national television, in a TV special called The Decision, that he was leaving Cleveland to join the Miami Heat. He would form a super team with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. "I'm going to take my talent to South Beach." That sentence destroyed Cleveland. People burned their LeBron jerseys in the streets. The team owner wrote an open letter calling him a traitor. Children cried. LeBron James, the hero, became the villain, and he knew it. That night, alone in his hotel room, LeBron couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling and wondered if he'd done the right thing. Because for the first time, he wasn't playing for the love of the game. He was playing to prove something, to prove he wasn't a failure. Miami was different. The lights were brighter, the pressure was greater. LeBron, Wade, and Bosh promised not 1, not 2, not 3, but multiple championships. They had a coming-out party as if they'd already won. But basketball doesn't work that way. In his first season in Miami, LeBron played well, all the way to the finals. And then, against the Dallas Mavericks, he froze. He simply disappeared. In decisive moments, he passed the ball. He avoided contact. He played like someone afraid of failure, and he failed. Miami lost. LeBron walked off the court with his head down, while the whole world tore him apart. Skip Bayless returned to TV and said, "I told you so." LeBron James doesn't have the heart of a champion. He's a coward, LeBron listened. And for the second time in his life, he wondered if Skip was right. But there was someone who didn't think so. Dwayne Wade, the guy who already had a ring, who had already proven it all, looked at LeBron in the locker room and said, "Bro, you're the best player I've ever seen, but you're playing to shut them up. And as long as you do that, you'll never win. Play for you. Play because you love it." Those words changed something in LeBron. He came home that summer and did something he'd never done before. He stopped trying to be perfect. He stopped reading the comments. He stopped trying to please everyone, and he set to work. The gym was empty. It was 5 in the morning. The sunlight hadn't yet arrived, but LeBron was already there, sweating. He wasn't practicing his shooting. He was practicing his mind. He brought in a mental coach, someone who helped him understand that the fear of failure was greater than the fear of losing. He learned to breathe, to calm down, to trust himself. He returned to Miami the following season a different man, calmer, more deadly, more human, and this time he delivered. NBA Finals. Miami Heat versus Oklahoma City Thunder. LeBron played like a man possessed. He scored, passed, defended, led. He did it all. And when the final whistle blew, LeBron fell to his knees in midcourt and cried. He finally had the ring. He looked up at the ceiling and whispered, "Thank you." Not for the public, not for the critics, but for himself, because he had proven that the boy from Akron, the boy without a father, the boy who slept on couches, he could be a champion. But the story doesn't end there. LeBron won another ring in 2013, this time even more dominantly. He was Finals MVP again. He silenced all his critics. He was, without a doubt, the best player in the world. But something inside him was still restless because he knew there was still a debt to pay. Cleveland. In 2014, LeBron did something no one expected. He came home. He wrote an open letter published in Sports Illustrated saying, "I'm returning to Cleveland. Not to prove anything to anyone, but because I have a promise to keep." Cleveland erupted in joy. The same people who had burned his jersey were now wearing it again. The same children who had cried were now chanting his name. But LeBron knew that words meant nothing without action. He had to bring the ring to Cleveland. The first season back was difficult, adjustments, new players. Kyrie Irving was young and talented but impatient. Kevin Love was coming from Minnesota and had never played in the playoffs. LeBron was the leader, but he couldn't do it all alone. They reached the finals in 2015 against the Golden State Warriors, led by Stephen Curry. Cleveland fought. LeBron played like never before. But without Kyrie and Love, both injured, he didn't have enough help. Golden State won. LeBron lost, and the world criticized him again. He can't win without a super team. He's not like Jordan. He will die without bringing a title to Cleveland. LeBron heard it all. And this time, he didn't break down because he knew the story wasn't over yet. The most important season of LeBron's life, Cleveland started strong. Kyrie was playing at his best. Love found his rhythm. And LeBron? LeBron was playing the best basketball of his career. They made it to the finals again. And once again, their opponent was the Golden State Warriors, but this time, the Warriors were even better. They had just had the best regular season in NBA history. 73 wins and 9 losses. They had Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. They were unbeatable, and in the finals, they dominated Cleveland. 3-1. Cleveland was one loss away from elimination. No team in NBA history had ever come back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals. It was impossible. But LeBron James didn't believe in the impossible. The night before Game 5, he gathered the team together. He looked each player in the eye and said, "We're not going to quit. I didn't come here to quit. I didn't bring you here to quit. We're going to win this, one game at a time, and they believed. Game 5, Oakland, home of the Warriors. The gym was on fire. The fans were screaming. The Warriors were confident, but LeBron played like a general. He scored 41 points. He defended. He led. Cleveland won. A 2-game 6 Cleveland. The whole city was in the streets. Bars were packed. Families were gathered. Everyone was watching. LeBron played 46 minutes. He didn't leave the court. He scored 41 points again. He did it all. Cleveland won. A 3-game 7, Oakland, all or nothing. The gym was silent before the game. The tension was palpable. You could feel the weight of the moment. LeBron James sat alone in the locker room. He closed his eyes and thought about his mother. He thought about Akron. He thought about all the times he'd been told he wasn't good enough. And then he got up and walked out onto the court. The game was a war. Every possession was a battle. The Warriors played well. Cleveland played better. With less than 2 minutes to go, the game was tied 89-89, and then it happened. The Warriors' Andre Iguodala took the ball and ran for an easy layup. No one followed. It was a guaranteed basket, but LeBron James, running from behind, flew. He leaped as if he had wings and made a block that echoed through the gym. The ball landed in the stands. People screamed. Even the Warriors fans fell silent. It was the most important block in NBA history. In the final seconds, Kyrie Irving hit an impossible three-pointer. Cleveland won, 93-89. LeBron James fell to the ground. He put his hands on his face and cried. He couldn't get up. His teammates surrounded him. The court was a sea of tears. Cleveland was champion. LeBron had kept his promise. As he lifted the trophy, he looked into the camera and said, "Cleveland, this is for you." And the entire city stopped. People wept in the streets. Strangers embraced. 52 years of sporting suffering ended that night. LeBron James, the boy from Akron, had brought home a championship. But LeBron's journey didn't end there. In 2018, he made another difficult decision. He joined the Los Angeles Lakers, not for titles, not for glory, but because he wanted to build something bigger than basketball. He opened a school in Akron called I Promise School, a school for at-risk kids, kids like him. He paid for everything, tuition, uniforms, food, transportation. He gave these kids what he never had, a chance. And when they asked why, he said, "Because I know what it's like to have nothing, and I know what a chance can do." In 2020, at age 35, LeBron won his 4th championship, this time with the Lakers, during the pandemic in a bubble in Orlando. Away from his families, he dedicated the title to Kobe Bryant, who had tragically passed away that year. LeBron cried holding the trophy and said, "Kobe, I hope you're proud." Today, LeBron James is not just a basketball player. He's an icon, a father, an entrepreneur, an activist. He uses his voice to advocate for social justice, to support black communities, to inspire millions. But when asked what he wants to be remembered for, he doesn't talk about titles. He doesn't talk about statistics. He says, "I want you to remember that I never gave up, that I came home, that I kept my word." LeBron James wasn't born with everything. He was forged in struggle, in sleepless nights, in constant change, in the absence of a father, in constant doubt, but he chose not to be defined by where he came from. He chose to be defined by where he was going, and when the whole world told him he wasn't good enough, when they called him a coward, when they burned his shirt and called him a traitor, he didn't break down. He came back, he got back up, and he won. LeBron James's lesson isn't about basketball. It's about character. It's about rising when the world expects you to fall. It's about coming home when it would be easier to stay away. It's about keeping your word, even when no one believes you. LeBron taught the world that true victory isn't in the scoreboard. It's in the courage to keep going when the odds are stacked against you. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, "I'm not going to give up." Today, LeBron James is 40 years old. He's still playing. He's still leading. And he's playing alongside his son, Bronny James, in the NBA. something that has never happened before in the history of the sport. He looks at Bronny on the court and sees what he never had, a father. And that, for LeBron, is bigger than any ring. But let's go back to that night. That night in 2010, when Skip Bayless said, LeBron James will never win a ring, never. Years later, in an interview, Skip was asked to comment on LeBron. He hesitated. Then he said, I was wrong. LeBron James isn't just a champion. He's one of the greatest of all time. And more than that, he's a man of character. LeBron heard that. And he smiled because he didn't need Skip's approval. He didn't need anyone's approval. He already had the only approval that mattered, his own. LeBron taught the world that you don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. He taught that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to fail. It's okay to be criticized, because what matters is not how many times you fall. It's how many times you get up. And when you look at LeBron James' career, you don't just see a basketball player. You see a boy who has become a man. You see a man who carried a city on his back. You see a man who came home when it would have been easier to leave. You see a man who put his community above his glory. LeBron James isn't perfect. He's made mistakes. He's made decisions that hurt people. He said things he wished he hadn't, but he is also human, and he never pretended to be anything else. There is one scene that sums it all up. It was 2016. Just after winning the championship, LeBron was alone in the locker room. Everyone else had already gone to celebrate, but he stayed. He held the trophy and looked at it for a long time, and then he started crying, not of joy, but of relief, because he could finally rest. He could finally say he kept his promise. He could finally forgive himself, LeBron. James taught the world that redemption is possible, that you can be hated today and loved tomorrow, not because people have changed, but because you have changed, that you can be called a villain and still be the hero, that you can carry the weight of the world and still choose to carry more. And when you look at LeBron today, playing alongside his son, building schools, using his voice to change the world, you see something rare. You see someone who won the game, not just the game of basketball, but the game of life. Because the truth is this: LeBron James didn't need to prove anything. He'd already proven everything in the first 20 years of his life. He survived poverty. He survived absence. He survived pressure. But he chose to do more than survive. He chose to win, not to shut up the critics, but to honor the boy he was, the boy who slept on couches and dreamed of something bigger. And today, on some court in Akron, there's a kid playing basketball. She doesn't have much. Maybe she doesn't have a father. Maybe she doesn't have a stable home, but she has a ball and she has a dream. And when someone asks who her hero is, she says, LeBron James, not because he has 4 rings, not because he's rich, not because he's famous, but because he came back, because he hasn't forgotten where he came from, because he showed that it is possible, and that, ultimately, is LeBron James's true victory. He didn't just win championships. He changed lives. He inspired millions. He showed that no matter where you come from, no matter what people say, no matter how many times you fall, you can always get up, you can always come home, you can always win. But there's one last chapter in LeBron's story that few people talk about. It's about the night before. Game 7 of the 2016 finals, LeBron couldn't sleep. He paced the hotel for hours. He called his mother. He talked to his kids. He did everything he could to calm his mind. And then, at 3 a.m, he left the hotel and went to the empty court. He picked up a ball and started throwing it, alone, in the dark, in silence. And he thought of everything, in Akron, in Cleveland, every criticism, every doubt. And he made a promise to himself, tomorrow I leave everything on the court. No matter the result, I give it my all. And that's what he did. That's the difference between good players and great players. Good players play to win. Great players play to honor the game. LeBron James honored the game, and the game honored him in return. Today, when you hear the name LeBron James, you don't just think of basketball. You think about resilience, you think about redemption, you think of a man who carried the weight of the world and yet chose to carry more. And that's the lesson LeBron leaves for all of us. Life isn't about being perfect. It's about being persistent. It's not about never falling. It's about always getting up. It's not about what people say about you. It's about what you say about yourself. LeBron James has been called a coward, a selfish man, a traitor, but he didn't let those words define him. He let his actions speak for themselves. And in the end, when all was said and done, what was left? A legacy of greatness, of courage, of humanity. And so, to close this story, let's go back to the opening. You're nothing without this team, LeBron. Years later, LeBron responded to that statement. Not in an interview, not in a tweet, but in one action. He built a school. He changed communities, inspired generations, and he proved that he is nothing without the team, because he never wanted to be. LeBron James has always known that true power doesn't lie in being the best alone. It's about lifting up everyone around you. And that's why LeBron James isn't just one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He is one of the greatest human beings because he understood something that few understand. That true victory is not in defeating your opponents, it's about defeating your own limitations. It's about being better today than you were yesterday. It's about using your platform to do good. LeBron James went broke in front of millions, but he got up even stronger. And he taught the world that there is no shame in falling. The shame is in not getting up today. LeBron James continues to play. At 40, he's still one of the best. He still leads. He still inspires. And when he eventually hangs up his boots, what will be left? A story about a boy who had every reason to give up, but who chose to fight. A story of a man who was hated by the whole world, but who chose to love back. Story of a champion who didn't just win at basketball, but he won in life, and that, my friends, is the story of LeBron James. A story of arrogance defeated by humility, a story of doubt destroyed by faith, a story of failure turned to glory. Because in the end, LeBron James didn't have to prove anything to anyone. He had already tasted everything. He just needed to prove it to himself. And he did. Not with words, but with action. Not with arrogance, but with heart. And now, when you see LeBron James on a basketball court, you don't just see a player, you see a symbol that it doesn't matter where you were born. It doesn't matter how many times you failed. It doesn't matter how many people doubted you. You can always become who you were meant to be. You can always come home. You can always keep your promise. LeBron James taught the world that greatness isn't given. It's earned, not with arrogance, but with humility, not with hate, but with love, not with excuses, but responsibly. And when you look at LeBron James's career, all the titles, all the accomplishments, all the stats, you realize something. None of that matters as much as the journey, because the journey is where you discover who you really are. And LeBron James discovered that he was much more than a basketball player. He was a leader, a father, a dream builder, and that is the final lesson. Don't play to prove the critics wrong. Play to prove you were right about yourself. Don't live for the approval of others. Live for peace with yourself. Don't chase glory. Pursue the purpose, because LeBron James isn't just remembered for his titles. He is remembered for his humanity, for your vulnerability, for your courage to fail publicly and rise even stronger. And when all is said and done, when your career is over, when the applause has died down, what will remain of LeBron James? A school in Akron inspired children, transformed communities, generations that learned that it is possible, because in the end, LeBron James went broke in front of millions, but he proved that breaking is not the end, it's just the beginning of something bigger, and that's the story of LeBron James, a story that doesn't end with a ring, but with a legacy that says, no matter how many times you fall, no matter how many times they doubt you, no matter how many times you fail, You can always get up. You can always come home. You can always win. And that, my people, is the true victory. Not on the scoreboard, but in the mirror. When you look at yourself and know you gave it your all, who honored his word, who never gave up. LeBron James went broke in front of millions and rose to teach millions. That is its true greatness. True victory isn't about defeating your opponent. It's about defeating the version of yourself that doubted you. LeBron James didn't just win championships. He defeated himself, and in the process, he taught the entire world that the greatest battle is always the one within, and that the greatest victory is always coming home.